Hi, this is Anna, and welcome back to the Somport Deep Cut. Today we're looking at Alsace, a region WSCT uses again and again because it's a perfect test of cause and effect reasoning. Climate, soil, topography, noble varieties, and vineyard management all sit close to the surface here, and examiners expect you to link all of them to style, quality, and price. Let's begin with the growing environment, because Alsace's identity starts with climate. Alsace sits in the rain shadow of the Vosges Mountains, giving it one of the driest and sunniest climates in France. The long, dry growing season and warm fawn winds help aromatic varieties ripen fully while preserving freshness, a signature balance across the region's wines. The vineyards themselves sit on the lower slopes of the Vosges, facing south, southeast, or southwest. Hillside vineyards have poorer, well drained soils and excellent sun exposure. These sites consistently produce the region's highest quality wines. Down on the plains, deeper and more fertile soils lead to higher yields and simpler styles, and they allow mechanization, which lowers cost. That hillside versus plain distinction is at the core of most Alsace exam answers. If you understand the slope, you can predict the style. Now let's talk about the varieties, because the four noble grapes define the region: Riesling, Pinot Gris, Gewürztraminer, and Muscat. Riesling buds late and ripens slowly, producing dry wines with high acidity, citrus and stone fruit flavors, and remarkable clarity. Pinot Gris buds early, accumulates sugar quickly, and gives fuller bodied wines with richness and sometimes an oily texture. Gewürztraminer needs long hang time to soften bitterness and develop its distinctive aromatics. It often has low acidity and high alcohol. Muscat appears in small quantities but remains an important aromatic variety in the mix. Now, something that really helps diploma students understanding how these varieties differ from their expressions in Germany or New Zealand. Alsace Riesling is typically dry, structured, and powerful. In Germany, Riesling often shows lower alcohol, finer aromatics, and a much wider range of sweetness levels because of cooler climate and slower ripening. New Zealand Riesling, especially from regions like Waipara or Central Otago, tends to be bright and high toned, with lime driven fruit and a cooler maritime freshness. So, Alsace is firmer and drier. Germany is finer and more delicate. New Zealand is lifted and fruit driven. For Pinot Gris, Alsace gives weight, spice, richness, and sometimes smoke. Germany's Grauburgunder is usually lighter and cleaner and with more restraint. New Zealand Pinot Gris leans towards ripe orchard fruit and a more approachable, juicy profile, usually without the depth you see in Alsace. And for Gewürztraminer, Alsace delivers the most powerful version, intensely aromatic, low in acidity, and high in alcohol. These contrasts aren't trivia, they're the backbone of cross region questions. Knowing them helps you answer with confidence and precision. Now, on to vineyard management. Vines in Alsace are trained high to reduce frost and humidity risk. The tall canopies require wider spacing on the plains, while hillside sites, which aim for concentration, tend to be more densely planted. Steeper slopes must be hand harvested, whereas flatter sites can be machine harvested, lowering labor cost and influencing final price. These details matter because exam questions often ask you to link vineyard decisions directly to both style and cost. Next, winemaking. Alsace winemaking is built around purity. Fermentations are generally cool for Riesling, Muscat, and Silvaner, and slightly warmer for Gewürztraminer to help fermentation finish. Producers use stainless steel or large neutral oak foeders, both intended to preserve aromatics rather than add flavor. Malolactic conversion is often avoided to keep acidity and precision. Lees aging may be used, but usually without stirring or batonnage, maintaining clarity rather than texture. Dryness has historically been inconsistent on labels, but the region now follows the EU sweetness categories, bringing more transparency to export markets. And then we reach the late harvest and Botrytis styles, Vendange tardive and Selection des Grands Nobles. VT or Vendange tardive requires high must waits but does not require botrytis. SGN or Selection des Grands Nobles must include botrytized grapes and must be sweet. These regulatory differences are small but important. Now let's talk business because it's absolutely examinable. Alsace sells most of its wine domestically, with a large share going through supermarkets. Cooperatives play a major role and are known for reliable quality rather than bulk production. Producer reputation is extremely important because many estates bottle 20 to 30 individual wines, different varieties, different vineyards, different sweetness levels. The tall flute bottle is required by law and gives Alsace its distinctive visual identity, but in some export markets it can cause confusion with German wines. All of these details feed into style, price, and market performance, the exact components examiners look for when they ask for commercial factors. So, how do I study Alsace? I anchor everything in the rain shadow climate because it shapes ripeness, acidity, and aromatic precision. I make sure I can explain slope versus plain logic clearly. I know the noble varieties well enough to articulate why they behave the way they do in Alsace and how that differs from Germany, New Zealand, or other regions. I keep Vintage Tardive and SGN rules very clear, and I always bring in the business context, cooperatives, domestic consumption, and the region's distinctive bottle identity. With this approach, Alsace becomes one of those most rewarding regions to write about in the exam. If you'd like the full written breakdown with past paper patterns, noble variety detail, VT and SGN reasoning, and the business context, I've linked my comparison article under this episode. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next one.